What's going on, everybody? All bodies. I am Jam Boom Boom, the Amir Premier, aka the World Premier. That's gonna be the screenplay name, like the author name. Like the World Premier is very much like, just imagine aesthetic wise like Elizabethan English kind of. Oh, hold on. All right, so like Elizabethan English author, like here's the scene. Late night, wax candle lamp, parchment paper, feather pen dipped in ink, writing on parchment paper. Like that's the world premiere. Okay, that took way too long, but to explain. But basically, this is a talk back for the process of creating Tanya's family unit. I had an amazing time fucking just coming up with the concepts and this particular story, starting from the virtue and principle. Like I had this idea back in like 2020. And it was around the time that like on the internet, it was very much, oh, start your own business and taxes and buy land and all that stuff. And it was like a big like, whoa, what the fuck moment. And I resonated with a lot of it because I was in that space of, fuck working 9 to 5s. I want to be my own boss and shit. So I was swept up. I was swept up in that shit. And this idea that I had just about a family creating and starting their own business, but from the perspective of them not having shit to begin with. And, all of these stories for Lost Dogs Chase Tales is just a variant of my own origin story, at least as far as like this 3D realm goes. But being able to take what has happened in the 3D in the external world and filtering it through my internal system, thus creating a mythology, thus creating a story. And so Tanya's family unit is book 12. So this is 12 out of 16. So this is very much like getting past all the initial shit. This is some below the horizon type shit. And it's very much like reflecting because it's like book 12. So it's going to be reflecting 6, like the work, but kind of like in a dreamy state. And for Tanya's family unit, like I was being able to even start in a dream. Like Tanya is the grandma. And so what I was saying just about, like starting from a perspective of a group or a family not having shit, you know what I'm saying? Again, very much like my own origin story and how I would paint it. Tanya is very much an archetype of my grandmother who died when I was very young. And from what I heard, like she was just a motherfucking firecracker. I have very, very vague images in my mind just about her physicality and how she carried herself. But there's a lot of pictures of her particularly like in a chair and like dancing. I remember like I would do this thing where I'd be like, oh, that's my song. When you're sitting down but you ain't up dancing yet and you just be like in the chair like, oh, that's my song. Like that's very much my grandma. Shout out to Alexis, aka Pumpkin. And in the intro for Tanya's family unit, I actually go through my own family like photo album. And Alexis is like the last photo in the intro. So special shout out to her. And, I wanted to, make the matriarch. I fucking love like matriarch archetypes, but we all know how like that always gets misconstrued because like it's then tied to all these fucked up archetypes like the mammy, and the matriarch is always hurt, by the patriarch or by the external world. I wanted to remix that a bit, not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but be able to explain the inner turmoil of grandma. Like, excuse me, like because she's viewed as a certain way, it's because of how her internal system has been, her internal workings. And so dealing with mental health, I think in the first episode I had mentioned dementia, but it's really not even dementia that she's dealing with. It's more so maybe like akin to Alzheimer's. I kind of want to keep it vague because I don't want that to necessarily, like the mental health issue be, what's put on center stage. I want it to be how people are dealing with it. Like what surrounds that conversation, that kind of cloud, that what's in the air when we're talking about mental health. And so the way that kind of presenting it and being intentional is like, yeah, the doctors diagnosed Tanya, the grandma, with some sort of mental, disease that causes her to not only lose her memory, but to be out of touch with the external world. And for a very long time, she's believed in that. But there's still that little sprinkle of hope. You know what I'm saying? There's all possibilities is very, very present in this story. And so even the opening scene being very dreamlike, we're in book 12, like I said, she has a dream, and shout out to Diana Gordon, one of my all-time favorite fucking musicians. Like, I've been listening to her since like 2008, and like watching her transform from like this like dance, New York underground dance, to like this folksy, just like this new age folksy. And she's so fucking gifted and talented, and her being able to just like tell a story with every single song. And the song Wolverine, that was off of her EP, I believe it's called Too Young. But there's this part in the chorus, like the chorus starts with, Mama says she had a dream. And like, ever since hearing that, I was like, yo, like Mama says she had a dream. Imagine like Mama like being like, oh baby, I had this dream. But the only person that Tanya can relate to at this point in the story is her grandson, Alex, who is a child. And this kind of goes hand in hand with that relationship between grandma and child and grandson, like inner child versus, inner child linking with inner child. And that's the way they relate through their imagination. And Tanya not being able to relate to anyone else because everyone is like an adult or just so much into the external world that they are forgetting all possibilities. They're forgetting the mysterious, the magical, the mystical, the mythical. And so it starts with, oh, I had this dream, and out of nowhere, this dream is what propels the action. So it's very much starting from the internal, and then that going into the external world with what you received internally. So it's already starting with this very hero's journey, but still being able to play with like the 3D. And so going into episode 2, it was like, Tanya's outside, like she has a really like beat down old van. She wants to go tell everybody about the dream, and her family is very dispersed. And again, that's going in and just showing her state of being. Her family is all over the place. They're not on one accord. And not even to say that families need to, have a family business. I think that's, just like a personal, just like something that I personally like went through, like, like what's the point of family? Like you look at, I think it started with me just like looking up my last name, my government last name, and like looking at family crests. But then also like just like going anywhere, any plaza, and seeing like family businesses, whether it be fucking, like medicinal businesses, mom and pop stores, pizza stores, they always have the family name on it and shit. So I was like, man, why don't my family got that? What the fuck? Like, why are we all, you know what I'm saying? But then, kind of like having a cathartic release and then putting that in the story where you can show like cousin Louis is like, who is Tanya's brother. And I kind of wanted to play on that. Like, we have family members who we call like family or like titles like aunt, uncle, but they really probably just like friends of the family. So like everyone just calls Louis like cousin Louis. Cause like, he's just neither here nor there. It's like, we know he's a part of the family, but we don't really know. But essentially he is Tanya's brother. And so they grew up together in under very like strict religious ideals. And he kind of took the route of being, like the I want to say hand-me-down like preacher, hand-me-down theologian. And shout out to Drea because Rose Gold Wings, because we had this conversation about creating villains and, aka like oppositions or Satans within the stories. And it was so easy for me to cast the theologian or the Protestant as the villain. And so after having that conversation just about, that's been done, and we want to create new genres. We want to create new archetypes. And this is something that's going to unfold for cousin Louis' story. He's your atypical like pastor pimp. He has a fucking like mega funeral home, which comes from a actual true. I wish I would have took a picture of this place, but it's on North Avenue in Baltimore, Maryland, where I saw this fucking like light up. The lights caught me first. I was like, what the fuck? Is this like a club? This shit was a funeral home, and it was like fluorescent lights, jumbo screen TVs. It looked like a walkway leading into. I was like, what the fuck is it? Why is this funeral home like being presented like a fucking like late night club? And so I just went and like anthropomorphized that and exaggerated that. And the Cousin Louis owns, not only like the funeral home, he owns like every other church and shit like that. But it's not out of this evil place. He's really just doing what he needs to do to survive. And even now talking about it's like he's gonna have his come to Jesus moment, or he's gonna have his Uriel moment. And that's what I was getting at too. Like what the new quote unquote villain, or what the new principle that we're bringing in through these stories is going to be the Uriel principle. It's going to be the idea that you start or you see yourself, or you're aware of yourself in one place, making the you in the sky, the rainbow, the death, going below the horizon, and seeing yourself on the other side, and change that transformation, that process. So Cousin Louis is going to have that, and it's not necessarily that he's like, oh, I need to cast demons, the whole world is evil. He's like, nah, I just need to make my money. Like, if you were to ask Cousin Louis, he's like, yeah, Jesus and God and Christianity is cool, but like, so is my new Bentley. Like it's like shit like that, where it's like he doesn't even like, he didn't get too deep with it. He just knows that it makes him money, and that's okay. Make your money. We all out here, we got to do that. So that's Cousin Louis, and everyone else, like all of Tanya's family members are, like they're probably lost in just like their 9 to 5. Everyone's kind of just like lost in the external world. And for the most part, Tanya was too, until she had this dream, until this influence came. And the influence is coming in the form of her husband, or her former lover, named Alexander Grant. And he has, these pop-up moments in the first few episodes where like she's reminding herself of when she fell in the well. And again, that's also painting the picture of just like falling in your emotions. Like everything is a, allegory. Everything is a fucking symbol and shit. And so like she falls into this well, and she's really just falling into her emotions. She's falling into the depths, into her seas. Very like scorpionic influences, just as far as like how deep can you go with what's behind the scenes. And so I just imagine, like a woman with long hair, maybe like a nightgown on, just like falling. And in those moments, being able to have like flashes of like what your life will become, what's ahead. And when she comes out, like the well really isn't even that deep, but for exaggeration purposes, when she comes out, she's transformed. However, she's transformed internally. She's made a lot of transformations internally due to her even just meeting Alexander and being into him. And he, he's this like this rolling stone, or what would be perceived as like a rolling stone. And he's into the stars, astrology, and he rolled in bones, and he's a trickster, and he's a con artist, but he's really just trying to survive. He really just doesn't agree with any of the institutions or the constitutions that exist in that time. And I kind of make it a little vague as far as like the timeline that's happening. Like it could be between the present can be between like now and like maybe like 2000, and then the past could be anywhere between like 1930 to 1950. That kind of influence too. I want to be very vague, at least with this story, for the time. It could take place anytime within that time frame. But yeah, Alexander was just kind of like, what would it be like for people and specifically for like astrologers, people who read energies, tarot readers, witches, wizards? What would it be like for these people to have existed, which they had? But this is me just imagining what that would look like from the external lens back then. And you have your examples of like witches, like, oh, it's a witch and burn them and shit. And then you have your examples of like dudes who are just like a little off. And I just decided to go with the like Rolling Stone route, like he's neither here nor there, but he's essentially an angel. He's essentially, an influence, and it depends on who he comes in contact with, where that person is in their life. Tanya just happened to be in a place where she was already rebelling and opposing against her religious upbringing, her town. And so her meeting Alex was like her transformation. Anyone else, because they were already so fixated in the institution, that they were participating in mentally and physically, they were just like, oh, nah, this dude is no good. He's evil. Blah, kill him, and they send the dogs out for him. And she ends up jumping in the well just to avoid, any trouble. And when she comes out, she's transformed. It's that idea of baptismal ritual where she's so into her waters, into her emotions, she doesn't know what to do. But she comes out in the same environment, and this then becomes the environment that casts stones at her. And so these mental health, quote unquote, issues that form later in her life are they were an exact effect of this moment in her life that she has done. That, well, it's like a mix of two things. Like the medicine has done has done to suppress her, but then also what she's done to suppress that memory. But, along came a star in the sky, a twinkle, twinkle, little influence that allowed her to remember it, not in a sorrowful way, but in a way that literally gets her up off her feet and makes action. And so that's like the underlying, the occulty. And as far as just like on the surface aesthetic influences, Tyler Perry, obviously, like Medea, like it's given Medea. But then it's also like Proud Family too. There's a lot of influences as far as like what the aesthetic calls for. Like Proud Family, Tyler, like Medea, Big Mama's House. Like imagine shit like that. And then like the key difference just being like that mystical element. It's not too 3D. It still allows for the audience to use their imagination and introduce all possibilities as something that's not just for cartoons, something that is for real life. And so I wanted to play on that too. And like TFU is like originally the original concept was FU. Which was just FU, but like fuck you, but like it was titled Family Unit. And I like the original, like how I saw the intro was like this kid, maybe Alex, like entering a house, maybe like before dinner starts, and Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up is playing in the background, but like slowed and reverbed. And it's like he opens the door and is like, I used to go out and pop. And so like while that song is playing, he's like walking through the house, but like it's like straight up chaos and like people are like yelling at each other. Maybe think about like the Rugrats intro, like how that like the angles are different and there's a lot of different things going on in the house. Not necessarily fighting, but that could be a part of it too. But it's just like completely chaotic. But once the character sits down at the table to eat dinner, that's when everything kind of just like comes together and starts to make sense. Like everyone had to like fight and bicker and things had to spill over just for us to come to the family table, come to the dinner table. And so I just add like that was like FU, like Family Unit, and I was like, I still want kids to listen to it and quote unquote family friendly. So I was like, I'm gonna just call it Tanya's Family Unit, TFU, and then that ends up kind of being like a catalyst for the business that Tanya essentially like buys out, which is the gas station. The Fuel Up is what they're gonna call it, and it's gonna be like this community staple. I had that idea when I was out, delivering, and I was like way out in like way over west, like county parts. And like there was like nothing in this town basically but this gas station. And I was like noticing the gas station through the elements. Like I was like, okay, this like fire, like the elements, fire, air, water, earth. And I was like, okay. I was looking like propane and shit. I saw that they like sell propane. I was like fire, water, like literally like if you want to go buy some water, or even like the liquid gas. I'm like water, air, literally like the air pressure, like the tires and shit. And then fucking earth, like, you can buy charcoal and shit like that. So this is kind of like a representative of like all four elements. I'll be geeking out. I'll be geeking out about that thing, like about shit like that, because it's like even the business itself is still going to represent this four corners place, something that has a little bit for everybody. And I can even imagine like like having like a modern twist to it where we like add electricity. So like not only does this place have like your typical gasoline stuff, but like, hey, you got an electric car? Come charge your car here too. And that could just be something as far as like modern day commentary to make fun of and to laugh at and shit. But I am just like very fucking excited. You know what I'm saying? Just as far as like being able to put this story out, I really wanted to just put this thing out because I was talking to people online and in real life, and I was like, yeah, it's this audio drama, blah, 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 blah. I would explain it all, what I thought was like, you know, perfect, spot on. The common senses was, what's an audio drama? What's an audio play? What are you talking about? And I'm just like, oh, right, like, I'm over here like, you know what? Ain't nobody, like, don't nobody really know what this is. And it ain't no fault to nobody. Like, I just had this experience when I was younger. And yeah, it's just like a movie in your head. It's just like a play in your head. You know, you like, and that was just some shit that I experienced when I was a kid. And I think that not only is it easy to present these bigger ideas, because essentially these stories will turn into movies and books and TV shows. It's easy to produce and it's easy to get out. As far as like a business card, say I want to work with another voice actor, or I want to work with a producer or another writer, I'm able to just sit back and record these things, get all kooky and produce and put together something that that essentially like sounds rough. You know what I'm saying? On front, like it's very rough, and I like that DIY aspect to it because I know it's only going to grow and get better and better and better. So yeah, let me just put it all together and let me, hopefully I can recreate that experience that I had as a child, like having these audio plays, you know, play in the car and going on long rides, road trips and shit, and you're able to like look outside of the window up to the sky and just imagine. That's where I, you know, discovered my imagination, and that is what I want to bring to the table just with this early format. You know, not reinventing the wheel, like I said, but, you know, kind of just throwing it back to this style, because we've gotten so used to the images and the aesthetics being presented to us first, where we could see someone who quote unquote looks like us and then automatically resonate with the virtues and principles. But it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who said I wanted to resonate with those virtues and principles first? I want to work backwards in a way where you're just getting the sound, and the listener is able to come up with their own images, their own aesthetic, and essentially, well, I don't, maybe I don't want to put too much like pressure on like what I want to happen, but it's like I want to give the audience or the listener the ability to fill in the blanks, because then that's collaboration. That's not here's what I want you to see and this is what I want you to fill in the blanks. I want you to see yourself in every character. And that goes back to, you know, creating protagonists and villains. Everyone's essentially going to have this Uriel moment, this death moment, this moment of realizing and being self-aware and not necessarily aware of their environment. And then that's essentially going to be like these new stories. So this is only the beginning. I'm fucking looking forward to working with more people. And bringing out more stories. I got 15 more stories, so I hope y'all not tired. I'm talking to myself, but I'm a little tired. I'm like, dang, I done did two. I'm a little tired now, but this is very exciting. It's something I wanted to do for so long. Premeditating on all these stories and like finally applying that shit, finally doing that shit. So I'm very excited. I appreciate y'all so much. We got a lot cooking up, and yeah, until next time.